Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the the first class on the Power BI series that will be running for the year 2026. Um, we have new community members, those who have not been on the Insight Hub for when we had our webinars last year. So I'm going to just do a brief introduction of what the webinar is like. This is ID Analytics way of giving back to our community, giving back to those who have taken it upon themselves to support us on the journey to serve both individuals and then companies better. So I want to welcome you once again. We'll be starting with the foundations of what Power BI is all about, the interface and all today. And like we have mentioned in the earlier messages that have been sent on the group, by the time we come to the end of this series, come November, we all have become a professional using Power BI. I'm going to be talking about ID Analytics briefly. Some of us might be new here, and I know we have those who have been on this journey with us since 2025. ID Analytics is a training and consulting firm. We empower individuals and organizations to harness the transformative power of data through tailored training and consulting, ensuring the individual or business that we support thrive in today's analytics driven. I will say a little bit of what we do. We train individuals. If you're a beginner in the data space or you're actually a professional and I would say, re-oil what you already know, because learning is a continuous journey. ID Analytics is your go-to firm as an individual or as a business who wants to who is using data, who is in the data space and all. So I want to welcome us once again to today's class, and then I'm going to be handing over to Mr. Musin Idowu, who will be our convener for today. Thank you, and I hope to hear from you. All right, before I actually hand over to him, we have the Insight Up community where most of us will be coming from. We have our LinkedIn page and we also have our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is your resource space. If you want to learn, get quick knowledge on what from Excel, SQL, Power BI, you can go to our YouTube channel to listen to previously aired trainings. You can scan the QR code currently showing on your screen right now to join Insight Up if you're not already there, or to visit our LinkedIn page or to go to the YouTube channel. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Leslie, for the welcoming. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this year, 2026. This the first webinar we are having this year, and I'm hoping that last year was quite interesting for some of you, for some of the topics that we went through. And last year, essentially, the focus was on Microsoft Excel. For anyone that followed through, you would realize that everything that we did last year was solely around Microsoft Excel. And this year, we had thought about it and then we decided, okay, let's have something on Power BI this year. So from February, like Messi mentioned, till November, we'll be having 10 different sessions, one session per month, which will be happening the last Saturday of the month like this, all things being equal. And today we will be having the very first session. So we have 1 hour to spend together. Let me share my screen so that we can shoot into this. So 1 second, because I'm gonna share this screen. Please give a reaction if you can see the screen. All right, super. Okay, so thanks again, everybody, for joining. So we want to have there's going to be like a mini course on data analysis with Power BI. What does it entail? I know that for some people on the call, you might have done some things in Power BI before now. For some other persons, you might be pretty new to Power BI, but regardless of what your level is with Power BI, we'll have a very solid conversation around it that's going to whether equip you with the necessary skill set when it comes to working with Power BI, or would enhance whatever you've known so far when it comes to the Power BI space. So data analysis with Power BI, that's what we call this series. And this month, today, we are having the very first episode. For some people that maybe we're meeting for the first time, just want to quickly run through something, which is to understand why data analysis in the first place. Again, a lot of times, or before now, some years down the line, we heard about the word data becoming a buzzword, everybody shouting around about data, everybody talking about being data driven, everybody wanting their staff, the employees to be data driven. So what does this mean? So when we go down the memory lane, what we realize is that one of what caused that was because of the fact that data generation became something so massive that organizations that were never keeping data, they started keeping data. Some organizations had kept data for so long, but no one was looking into the data. And then they started to think, okay, what can we make do with this data that we have? And that was something that brought about the buzz that we saw about data at that point in time. So when we say data analysis, generally, it implies that you have your data somewhere already, because before we say that you want to analyze data, one thing is clear: you already have that data stored somewhere. You already have that data captured in a usable form, so to put. If it's not yet in a usable form, you wouldn't be talking about data analysis. So when we say data analysis, when we say we want to start to analyze data, the assumption is that at some point in time, your data has already been kept properly, been gathered properly, been structured in the right way that's usable for you to a large extent. Then we now want to analyze. And for you to analyze data, a number of things come to mind. Number one is, if you think about the mundane things that we do, many times a lot of our decisions day to day, they are bound by data. We have only not put a lot of we've only not paid a lot of attention to that. For example, there are times that you want to do certain things. If we have people here who are into farming, you already have the calendar of how you farm in your head somehow. And then, so if, for example, it rains in February, there's a rain in February, someone tells you that, oh, rain has started, but you as a farmer, you feel like, no, rain hasn't started. The rain that we got in February is so unusual. So if you plant with that, you might actually run into losses. That's because over some period, you had used that data, you had gathered that data subconsciously in your mind, and that data is coming into play as what people naturally call experience. So a lot of the things that people will say is from experience, it's actually from data gathered over a certain period of time. So when you have this data now, the essence of analyzing is to now use that data to make decisions, which is in the case of this farmer that I just mentioned, the farmer had subconsciously gathered data and now using that data to make a decision of when to actually begin farming, when to actually begin clearing the land, when to engage those that would help with the plantation and every other thing, is now putting the data that's been gathered into use. The same thing is applicable to an organization. An organization already has data in place, and then they need somebody to help them look into the data, to help them make decisions over certain things. Number one is, for any single organization, they want to understand what is working within the business. They want to be able to say that when we resume in the year, we have strategies formulated. We have plans for the year. The plans that we have for the year, we have implemented a few of them. We need to measure how accurately these plans went down the line. We want to know the things we planned out, did they actually work? So that is number one. First thing that an organization would want to know. Number two is an organization wants to know what is not working. But have a clear understanding of what is working. Apparently, the direct opposite will be what is not working, because if it's working, it cannot be not working. So those are mutually exclusive events. So an organization would want to know when we said that we wanted to hire more people in the operations team because the manager complained that people are overwhelmed. So now we've hired 5 more people on the operations team. We want to now measure the effectiveness. We want to see how effective was that decision to hire more people. And then what we realized was that it's only by looking into the data that's when we realized that we actually hired right, or the thought of saying that we needed to hire was not actually too valid. That might be the case. So a lot of things will be uncovered as to what is working, what is not working when an organization begins to look into the data that they have. And lastly is an organization will be able to make a decision of what they should focus on. What should they focus on as a business? So if you have a number of product lines, for example, which of the product lines do we focus on? Because if, for example, the product line that is giving us the most revenue is also the one that is sucking us the most when it comes to the operating cost, then it might not make sense to expend all of our resources in there and then having to close our eyes blindly completely to other places. So we need to focus on that to see how we can optimize the cost, reduce the cost, how we can be more efficient in the delivery of services in that regard, so that in the end, as we are making a lot of money from that business line, we will also be able to maintain a very good margin so that our cost is not eating up completely what our revenues would be. For people that are just joining for the first time, this is the person speaking. My name is Mohsin H. That's my name. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. I've got a couple of other certifications in the data space. I've been in this space for quite some years now, trained quite a number of people. At ID Analytics, I lead the operations team, and currently for my 9 to 5, I work at OnePass 365 as the BI manager. All right, so let's go on. Introduction to Power BI. When we talk about Power BI as a whole, so Power BI belongs to Microsoft. First foundation. Power BI is a Microsoft. It being a Microsoft product would already inform us of certain things. One of the things that this would inform us is, if you want to get Power BI, how do you get it? We'll come to that. But Power BI belongs to Microsoft as the owner company, and also is that Power BI belongs to a family of products called the Power Platform. So when we talk about everything Microsoft has completely, there are products and then there are product categories. So it's more like saying that we have a university. In the university, we have different faculties, and these different faculties hold different departments. So the same thing, think about Microsoft as a university. So within Microsoft as a university, there are different faculties, which could be the Power Platform product, it could be Microsoft Office, it could be the cloud services, a couple of products here and there. And then we now have the department, which in Power Platform faculty, the department will now be Power BI, Power Apps, and the likes of those. So we had a session last week where I broke down some of this concept a bit more. So you could check on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure we've uploaded it yet, but hopefully we'll upload our recording. So what I want to bring up from here is Power Platform. Power BI belongs to the Power Platform family. And what that tells you is that the Power Platform family is the low-code tool or the low-code platform from Microsoft. When we say low-code, what this means is that traditionally before now, some 10, 15 years back, for any single thing that you want to do in the IT space, you have to be a programmer for most part of it. You need to know some level of code. You need to be able to write some level of programs. Programs could be written in C, Java, C#, C++, all those programming languages that were available at that point in time. But some 5 years ago, there came the concept of low code or no code development, which means you are able to develop certain IT related tools or IT related applications by way of not writing traditional codes as people would do. So someone like me, like yourself, who are not that much coding inclined, we're able to develop our own application for the business. We're able to build our own tools, our own reports to make use of in the organization without having traditional programming knowledge. So that's the concept of low code. So Power Platform as a family is the family of low-code tools which Power BI belongs to. So what that tells you again is that because Power BI is low-code, a lot of what you will be doing at the foundational level will not necessarily need you to write codes. You'll be able to develop reports. You'll be able to put some amazing stuff together without having to write necessarily. You are not writing codes. What you'll be writing at some point in time is you making use of a functional language, which we're going to get to at some point in time. So now, when we now talk about Power BI, this is how Microsoft will define Power BI to you. And this definition has some important details that we need to pay attention to. So Microsoft would say this definition is directly from the Microsoft Learn, which is the Microsoft documentation library for every single thing that Microsoft has. So Microsoft would say that Power BI is a collection of software, services, apps, and connectors. So what this alone tells us is that Power BI is not a single thing. Power BI within it, there are softwares, there are services, there are applications, and there are connectors. And as we go down the line, we'll now be able to, at some point, when we talk about certain things, we'll now tie back to this definition to see that this thing that we are talking about now is a connector. This one we are talking about now is an app. This one is a service, and this one is a software. But just take it for now that when we talk about Power BI, there are a lot of things within Power BI. And this will make sense when you begin to see some job ads today, and they say that they want to hire a Power BI developer. Somebody is wondering if all what Power BI people do, if all they do is just to sit somewhere and then they build a report and stuff. That's so simple. Why should we hire somebody for that? Maybe in the US and you're paying the person $80,000 per annum or $100,000 per annum. It doesn't make sense. But again, it makes more sense when you think about it from this definition standpoint to say that, oh, so Power BI is actually a lot. There are different areas to Power BI, which if we actually need someone who has specialty in the entire Power BI thing, it actually could sit as a complete role itself. So coming back to the definition, Power BI is a collection of software, services, applications, and connectors. Let's go on. When we now talk about the products in the Power BI ecosystem, there are different products in the Power BI ecosystem, and these products directly tied to the softwares. So Power BI as a whole has softwares, as we've seen in the definition. The softwares are the product, and there are quite a few of them. The very first one in the Power BI ecosystem is that we have the Power BI desktop. We have the Power BI desktop. So the Power BI desktop application is that which you install on your desktop. You install it on your desktop, it sits locally on your laptop, and you are able to develop whatever thing you want to develop with it on the desktop. So now, why would you use the Power BI desktop application? A lot of the development activity would actually happen here in the Power BI desktop. A lot of the development activities, which is you want to build your report, you are putting together, connecting to all your data sources, everything, data modeling, all of this fun stuff, they will happen on the Power BI desktop. And after that, you will now need to get your reports to what is called the Power BI service. So this is one of the services. So your report has to get to the Power BI service, from where you can now make the report available to people, your users, the consumers of your report. Why would you do this normally? We'll get to that conversation. And then we have the Power BI mobile. So the Power BI mobile, that is the one that you can install on your mobile device. If as of today you use an Android device, you can go to your Google Play Store and you search for Microsoft Power BI. You'll be able to download an application for Power BI that you can use on your mobile device. But just know that the application that you're downloading on your mobile device can only be used to view reports. You cannot use it to develop. So all of the development activities will happen on the Power BI desktop, on the Power BI service, as well as the Power BI mobile. They are primarily for consumption, although today on the Power BI service, you can also do some level of development of the service. So beyond these three products that you see here, there are quite a number of other products. So we have the Power BI report server, we have the Power BI report builder. So for some organizations, they don't want their data to be exposed, because as soon as you push your data from Power BI desktop, you push it to the Power BI service. In some ways, Microsoft will tell you that your data is secure. Yes, it is secured, but your data is available to Microsoft in some ways because Microsoft owns the data center that your data is sitting on. So when we say data center, it just looks like you have a flash drive or you have a hard disk. You have very big one at that is situated somewhere physically. It could be underwater somewhere, and then you now have all of the data that's been generated by different tools that Microsoft has been pushed to that particular data center. So that's what it means. So your data is actually exposed in certain ways. But for some organizations, especially in the financial services industry, they feel like no, they don't want their data to be exposed. So for that reason, they would want their data to still sit locally for them within the or with them in the organization, and by that they would not be pushing their data, their reports to the Power BI service. Yeah, otherwise, instead they use the Power BI report server. So there's a Power BI report server, that is where they push their report to, and the Power BI report builder, that is what they will use to develop the report. So in their case, they'll be working with the report builder, pushing their reports to the report server. But if it's an organization where they don't mind their data to be on the cloud, then they will develop with the Power BI desktop and push the data to the Power BI service. So now, if this is clear to us, so okay, so let's talk about this last slide for now. Building blocks of Power BI. As much as possible, I want to limit the concept so we can do a lot more practical in this course. The very first thing in the building blocks of Power BI, so think about building blocks like we have a plan to build a house. What are the things that eventually will be what people will see and they will call the house? The very first thing is data itself. So data, for anything you want to do in Power BI, data is foundational. If you don't have data, you can do anything. And when we say you have data or you do not have data, it's beyond the data being available or not. The data can be available, but you cannot access it because in the organization, for your level, you're not supposed to access such a data, or because within the organization, someone in operations, you're an analyst assigned to operations, and then somebody now asks you to develop a report for finance. And within the organization, the rule is that if you're assigned to a specific department, you should only be granted access to the data of that department alone. So that is possible. So when we say that data is available, it means that data is actually accessible to you. You are able to access that data, you are able to connect to it, you're able to plug into it, or they are able to pull the data and share with you. So data is foundational to anything you want to do in Power BI. When we now have data, the next thing that is important to talk about is visuals. Remember, for people that are coming from Excel background, in Excel, you would have learned about some charts, some graphs in Excel, and whatever thing you have learned in Excel, those charts and graphs, they are called visuals in Power BI. So this term is very important. Again, for examination purposes, those might want to write some exams in the near future. You need to understand some of this terminology. So visuals, just think about it. They are your pie chart, your bar chart, and every other thing that you know as of today. Then we have the report. So when you begin to use your visuals, creating charts, putting together a couple of them on a page or many pages of Power BI, you have what is called a report. So that's what gives a report in Power BI. We also have what is called a dashboard. Sometimes some people would say that report and dashboard, they are the same. Yes, in some school of thought, they are the same. But in Power BI, in Microsoft terminologies, they are not the same. So a report is what you build on the desktop, which can have multiple pages. You can only develop a dashboard on the Power BI service. So you cannot develop a dashboard on the Power BI desktop. So it'd be wrong for you to have only worked on the desktop and you're saying that you have a dashboard ready. No, what you have is a report. If you want to build a dashboard, your report has to get to the service first, and then you now build a dashboard out of your report. And dashboard, think about it like the dashboard of a car. A dashboard of a car will tell you what is important at every point in time. It doesn't tell you everything that happens around the car or in the car. In the same way, the dashboard is a one-pager thing that tells you what is important around, that you pick what is important and then you pin on it. Then we have what is called a tile. So the space that a dashboard sits on, a chart sits on the dashboard is what is called a tile. So it's like the plot of land that a chart or a visual uses on the dashboard. That is what is called a tile. So for all of this, we'll get back to how to say them very much practically. So at this point, I'm going to switch my screen quickly to again, we said this is very foundational. So if you want to download the Power BI desktop application, you actually have a couple of options. So you can go on the browser, you can go on Chrome, whatever browser you use, you search for download Power BI. So let me just exemplify that in a second. 1 second. So if I come here, download Power BI desktop. So I'm going to bring this here on the screen. If you search for download Power BI desktop, you would see this first link here, which is for Microsoft. This one also is to download Power BI. So I think either of them should work. So, but again, just ensure that you're using Microsoft actual download link. And then if I click on this link to download Power BI desktop, this will download it directly. But one thing you should know is that when you download via this route, Power BI gets updated every single month. Every single month, there's a new release, there's an update in Power BI. So if you download via this route, your Power BI is somehow disconnected from this update. So when Microsoft pushes this update, it doesn't get to you automatically. You might not only download whatever the newest version is. And that's why the better approach is to go through the Microsoft Store. So if you're on a Windows system, you go through the Microsoft Store, you come here in the search bar, and then you search for Power BI desktop. So if you search for Power BI desktop, you'll notice that there are a couple of Power BI options where you want to install. So this is the report builder here. You'll see a couple of other things, but this is Power BI desktop. So if you go into these, and then you'll see, because I have it already downloaded for you, if you don't have Power BI already installed, you see a download option here, or you see get. It's either you see this to be get, or you see it to be download. So download from here. When Microsoft pushes new updates, you most likely would get it when it is generally available. All right. So now, assuming we have downloaded our Power BI. So let's say we have downloaded our Power BI, and this says we'll launch Power BI now. So when you finish the Power BI desktop application, you get a window like this. For you, if you're launching for the first time, you might get a pop-up that's like the get started pop-up window, and that window sort of shows you some information. There will be some links to where you can learn a little more about Power BI. There will be some reports that you recently worked on and some stuff. You see all of those on there. But for me, because this is not my first time of launching Power BI, and then because I've asked you not to open that, to give me that window again. So this is what I would get. So now on this particular window, what is important at this point is you select a blank report. It's just like you launch a Microsoft Excel workbook. When it opens up, then you can select that you want to work on a blank workbook. So if I select blank report here, what you get here is the Power BI interface. This is the Power BI interface. And this interface, for every one of us that we are familiar with the Microsoft Office tools, you already have an understanding of this is Microsoft. So because Microsoft has a peculiar way of arranging all their stuff. So if you look at the very top part of the screen, we have here, we have the visual interface, the ribbon interface. It runs to the end. And then within the ribbon interface, we have what is called the menu or the tabs. So this is the menu. Home is a menu or the home tab. They have the insert tab. Modeling is here, view, optimize, help. It's possible, depending, you can have another tab here for external tools. So on this system that I'm using for this call, external tools are not here. But again, we'll get to a session where we'll explore some of those. So those are the tabs. Then within the tabs, we now have what is called the groups. So data is a group. Clipboard is a group. How do you know what a group is? You would see a thin line dividing the start and end of a group. So this is a group here, the data group, that is the boundary. Then we have the queries group and the insert group. And within each group, you will see the different buttons that we're going to work with. But now, if I go out of this, on the left pane, we have some icons here. So these icons here, they are called buttons. They are called views. They are called the different views in Power BI. The first one here is the report view. Think about the report view as the view you have to be on when you want to develop your report. You are ready to build your report now. This is the view you have to be on. And I'll come back to this in a moment. When you load in data into Power BI, as I said earlier, that data is foundational to anything you want to do in Power BI. When you bring in data into Power BI, depending on how you have connected to that data, you may be able to see the actual data in Power BI. If you want to see it, you need to be on the table view, which is the second. Then, because for a lot of things that you'll be doing in Power BI, there would be times that you want to build a single report on multiple tables. Maybe there is a sales table, there is a finance table, there's an operations table, there's a customers table. There are just different tables scattered around, but you want to be able to bring them all together so you can build a single report on top of all of them. Then you need to come here to the model view to create what is called a data model. We'll have a full-blown session on data modeling, so where we discuss a lot of the nuances and intricacies. Then we have the DAX query view. So DAX is the language of Power BI. Not to worry about it for now if it's pretty new to you. So if you want to write some DAX that you want to, just see this DAX query view as your playground. This is where you come to write some DAX, see the result before you go use it in your report. But one thing you need to know is that when you're using the DAX query view, whatever DAX you are writing here must always return a table. So if it doesn't return a table, it's not going to work here. Then we have the TMDL view. So the tabular model definition language. So here it's about you. It's more like a replacement, a view that replaces or that attempt to replace what you normally would use with Tabular Editor. So Tabular Editor is one of the external tools that you can use with Power BI before now to enhance what is possible with Power BI. So here you can do some table definition, some measure definition, you do some calculation groups, all of this thing that I'm talking about. I know it might be pretty new to some people, but again, it's just so that we have that information for now, nothing to bore us about that. So these are the different views that we have in Power BI. Then the report view is where we are now. So in the report view, at the center, we have what is called the report canvas. So this canvas, this is like the plotter plan that you have. This is where you'll be putting all the fun stuff. So everything, whenever you see someone develop a report out there, this is where they have actually arranged all of the different visuals, right? Remember, I said visuals, they are your charts, they are your graphs and every other thing. So this is where they have put together every single thing. And now you notice something, that there's an information here that says that we need to add data to our report. So if we do not have data, we cannot do anything yet. So it's asking us to get the data first, which we'll come back to in a moment. Then the other thing that is important on the screen is that if I come here to the very right, I have what is called the visualizations pane. So this visualizations pane, this is where you see all of the options of the visuals that you have by default. So you have the different charts in Power BI like this, and then you are still able to bring in more visuals that you don't currently have. So imagine that you have a phone. So you buy a new phone. Your phone normally will come with some applications, but not all the applications that you need will already be on the phone. So there are times that you need to go into the store to go import or bring in some new applications. So it's the same thing here. So you have this different set of visuals. If there are visuals that you need that are not currently here, you have the option here to bring in those visuals. We'll get to that as well. And then lastly, on this page, what I want to mention now is whatever you are developing for now, on this particular view, you are developing it for a desktop. So which means the report is developed in a way that it fits on a desktop screen. If you eventually, when you're done, you now want to modify it so that it's visible, it's usable properly on a mobile device, you need to now switch to this view and rearrange all of your visuals. So Power BI allows you to develop for a desktop resolution and for a mobile resolution as well. So this is the Power BI interface. And just like Microsoft Excel, Power BI has pages, Excel has worksheets. So in Power BI, you are able to add multiple pages. So this is page 1. If I click this, it gives you another page. Click this, it gives you another page, and like that. Now, we are done with the interface now. So this is the interface. As we get along, we'll get much more familiar with the interface, where to go to, where to click, before you to get certain things to work. So, like I mentioned, the very first thing, which is like the most important thing to want to do in Power BI, before you can do anything in Power BI, is to bring in data into Power BI. Your data can be coming from multiple sources or any source, depending on what the source is within the organization. So if you want to connect to a data, let's assume that the data sits on Microsoft Excel. What you need to do is to come here. You see that this is the data's group. So in the data group, that is where you see the option to use to connect to where your data sits. The option that you're going to select here is directly tied to where your data is sitting. So if your data is sitting on Microsoft Excel, this option will work. If your data is sitting on SQL Server, this option will work. If you want to create a static data that doesn't connect, it's not connected to anything, you can use the Enter Data option. The Dataverse, this is the database that was specifically created for Power Platform, and like that. So now this one link here is related to Microsoft Fabric. Now, if you look at this, you see that we have very limited options here. But this is not all the places you can bring in data from. So you can, if you want to explore all, see the longer list, you can come here to this option that says Get Data, and click on this drop down, and then you see that we have quite a few more options here, but this is still not all of the options that we have. If you want to see the entire list, click on More, and when you click on More, you see now that we have a much longer list of places you can bring in data from. So your data might be sitting on an Access database, a SQL Server, an Oracle database, a Microsoft MySQL Server, and a lot more places where you can bring in data from. Now, so for today, we want to explore a few data sources. So the files that we'll use for this session, we'll create a shared folder where we'll drop all the files so that anyone that's willing to practice after now, you can practice from there. Now, I have a few data sets that we want to explore today. So if I want to just bring this on my screen. So if you look at this, we have, we have these files here. So you have the HR data, which is a Microsoft Excel file. And for Microsoft Excel files, so this will have an extension of .xlsx or .xls. That's the extension for this. We have a PDF file. We have also, this is actually a CSV file here. No, so the first one is a CSV file, this HR data, comma separated values, and this is the actual Excel file. So now we want to connect to all of this. So let's pick them one at a time. So I'm going to bring this off here. And like I mentioned earlier, if you want to connect to a data set, we need to just understand where the data is coming from. So first data is coming from Microsoft Excel. So I'm going to come here to Excel workbook. I can click here, another option. I can click here. There are a couple of ways to get to it. So I click here to connect to the Excel workbook. So I'm just going to try to navigate down to that stuff quickly. So come in here, come in here, come in here, come in here. So now, because I already selected Microsoft Excel, you notice that initially when I showed the folder, there were 3 files here. But because I already told it that I want to connect to a Microsoft Excel file, what I see here has now been narrowed down to an Excel file. And one thing you need to pay attention to here is this is where the filter is. So it says that I'm supposed to only see Excel files, which are of these kind of extensions. So if you want to, for whatever reason, maybe you only clicked on Microsoft Excel as erroneously, you now want to connect to a PDF file, for example, you just need to come here, switch this down to all files, and you will see all the files again, and you're able to connect to whatever you want. But for now, we want to connect with the Excel file, which is this last one, not tool sales. I'm going to click and I'll click on open. So this is, I'm going to open up. Now, so when this opens up, we landed on the navigator window. So this navigator window, you don't always get it, depending on the source you're working with. Now that we're working with a source, Microsoft Excel, we got this. And the reason why you would get the navigator window essentially is if within that source, there are options. It's not just a single thing that exists that can be connected to. There are options of things that can be connected to that you always get a navigator, because Power BI would want to understand what is this that you want to connect to within the source that you're pointed to. Now we have two things. There is a table and there is the sheet. If you observe, it's the same data that is on the table and the sheet. What Power BI is trying to do here is to try to understand the different objects that are on that source. So we have a worksheet called sheet 1. We have a table still on the same worksheet, but has been named table 1. So Excel, Power BI is asking, which one do you want to connect to? Do you want to connect to the table or the entire worksheet? The advantage of connecting to the table is you are not giving Power BI the stress of having to scan the entire worksheet. So he only looks at the table area, which might just be 10 rows, and then he connects to it. So it's a lot faster. It's usually faster than having to connect to the entire worksheet, depending on the volume of the data that you have. So for now, I will select table 1 like this, but notice something. When I come down to the bottom of the navigator, there are 3 buttons here. So you have the load, there is a transform data, and there is a cancel. The only active button at this time is the cancel, which is pretty much obvious. If you click cancel, we go back to where we came from. But if you notice, load and transform data, they are grayed out. This is because of the fact that we are expected to do something. We've only selected the name of the table here that I want to connect to. This selection enables us to see the preview. But this selection does not tell Power BI that this is what we want to connect to. So what we need to do essentially is to check the box here for what you want to connect to. As soon as you check this box, you come down here, you notice now that our buttons are active, and then we are able to use any of the buttons. More like it, if we use the load button, the way the data is exactly now, it gets loaded into Power BI. No fancy stuff is done. But if we observe that we will actually want to do some cleaning on the data, you will not click on load directly. You need to click on transform data, which will take us somewhere else. We're going to see that in the next class. So for now, I'll click on load to load this data directly into Power BI. And this, depending on the volume of the data, depending on the power of your system, the comfort factors, this might take some seconds to load or up to some minutes, depending. So now this is going to load in. We see that this is coming in, it's loading. And in a bit now, we should get the data in Power BI. So it says 2,155 rows has been loaded. And now you see what we had initially, all of the buttons, they had gone. And now it's telling us to build visuals with our data. But we are not doing that today. So I'll come here. If I want to see, remember, if I want to see the raw data that's been loaded, I'll come here to table view. And on the table view, this is where we'll now see the raw data is coming up. So this will display, and this is the data exactly how it is on the source. And if you come here to the model view, we'll see the table. This is the table, waiting for some other tables which we might want to relate together. So let's go back. So that's with connecting to an Excel source. So let's connect to the PDF. So I'm going to say get data. Why am I using get data at this time? Because you see that here, we do not have the PDF options. So I need to come to the get data to look for PDF. And on this preview, we do not have PDF here. So I go to more. And then I come here, I see PDF here. I select it and I click on connect. Now it takes me directly to that same location. I can select this. That's the PDF I want to connect to, and I click on open. Someone may want to ask, why would I want to connect directly to a PDF file? The answer is not far-fetched. So a lot of the example people that are in finance, a lot of the times they want to work with company financials in their report. And what they do, what I've seen them do, is that they open the PDF somewhere and they connect to they open the PDF and then they are copying the data out into Excel. While this might work, this might be efficient for some of them. What you will notice is that it's not quite the best method, because when you copy, you paste in Excel, you might actually misplace the arrangement depending on the original structure of the data itself. But the data we need on this file is, if I come here, I know the page here. So this is the statement of financial position need on this file. So this is what it typically would do. Highlight it like this, copy it, and they go and paste in Excel. So, but now what I use Power BI to connect directly to this. So I would come here back to this. So this is still connecting. So what I'm expecting, like I explained earlier, is to have a navigator window, because as you would have seen, you would have expected there might be a number of items on that file that you may want to now specifically point to what you want to connect to. So this is loading up all of the different things that can be connected to on that file. When this is up, what we just need to do is to navigate specifically to the actual table that we need, and we will be able to connect to it. So this is coming up. Yeah, so this is up. So you see here that we have lots of tables, and it tries to tie it to the page number. So if you want to preview what is there, you say this is a table on this page. This is the one on this page. But I know that the one we need sits on page 50, 51. So it should be somewhere here. And now you notice this is what we need. This is what we want to connect to. This is the statement of financial position. So again, my buttons will not be active yet until I select the checkbox. And now I'll click on load. This is loading here. All right, so we have this in. Let's see what it looks like on the table view. Now that I'm on the table view, you notice again that I can still see the data that I saw previously. Someone is wondering, how do I see the one that I just brought in? What you just need to do, go to the far right. Here, you see a list of all of the data that you've connected to, a list of them. So if you have 20 tables, you see all the 20 tables lined up here. Now, what you need to do is just click on the table that you want to see the data for. So I select this table, this is the one we just brought in, and then I come back here. This is what the actual data looks like. But you notice here that something is off. Power BI is not able to recognize that. What I have here is actually the heading, and that's why Power BI gave it the default heading, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. How do we resolve this? We'll see that in the next class. So then, the last one I want us to check, I will skip the CSV bit because it's pretty much like the Excel. The difference is just that for CSV is expected to have only one object. It's not possible that you have tables in CSV. It's not possible that you have multiple worksheets in CSV. So it's only one object. So when you attempt to connect to a CSV file, you would not necessarily have the navigator window where you have to select what you're connected to. It just directly shows you the preview of the data, and then you have to just click to go into whether to load or to do transform data. So lastly, we want to connect to a SQL Server database. So I'm bringing this here on my screen. So this is my SQL Server Management Studio. For people that are pretty new to SQL, if you have SQL as a database engine installed on your system, you cannot directly access the data or data that is on that database. You will need an interface. So it's just more like you have some files saved on your memory card, you cannot directly see those files. So you need to put the memory card somewhere that then gives you an interface which enables you to now see what is in there. So maybe you're inserting the memory card into a phone, or you're inserting it into a smart TV or somewhere before you can now read the details. So think about this that I have opened. Think about it like your phone that you want to use to see the data that is sitting on a memory card. So the database I want to connect to here is the AdventureWorks 2019. If I come here to the tables, we've got different tables on this database actually. So I'll just pick a few of them and then for the purpose of this demo. So now, how do we connect to the tables that we have here? So let's go back here. On Power BI, we have the option for SQL Server. So I'm going to select SQL Server. And when you select SQL Server is asking for a couple of things. Number one is, what is the server name? Then it says that you supplying the database name is optional. Then we have the data connectivity mode. So we'll look at them in rapid succession so we can have some 2 minutes for questions before we close. First thing is, how do I get the server name? What we need to do is to go to your SSMS like this. When you get here, if you're already in like this, excuse me, just click on this button to connect. You're already connected actually. But for you to see the server name, you need to go back to that connection window. So I click on this button to connect, and you see here that on the connection window, the server name is for me localhost. So for you, the server name might be a URL, might be wherever, depending on if this database is for an organization. So I'm going to select localhost here. And then I come here and I put that in as a server. I will leave every other thing as the default, and then I'll click on OK. So when I do that, Power BI attempts to connect to the entire databases that I have. And you see here on the navigator window that I have all of the different databases that I have. This is AdventureWorks 2019, the DW 2022, and like that. Now, you will now need to go into each of them to actually select what you want if you do not specify this name. But if you want to make your work easier, what you will do is come here to SQL Server. You provide the server name, localhost. Then I'll provide the actual database that I want to connect to. So I will say the database is AdventureWorks 2019. But I will leave this ones as a default so we see the differences. Then I will do OK. The difference you'll see here is rather than we being faced with a list of all the databases, we have this already narrowed down to the AdventureWorks 2019. So it makes your scan a lot easier. And remember that I left it on the import mode, that's the data connectivity mode. So for now, I'll just come here, I'll select any table here. This might be a big table, so let me select a table like this one, employee. So I'll unselect this one, and then I'll just click on load. So I want you to see something that will happen here. All right, so we have brought in that table, so I can go back to the table view for my resources. You see that we see the actual data that is here. So let's go SQL Server. So I do localhost again. Now, for the data connectivity mode, I will change it from import to direct query. Then the database I will say is still AdventureWorks 2019. Notice the change. Import has been changed to direct query. So I'll click on OK. Still faced with the same thing. Then I will just pick another table here, this one, and I'll click on load. Blah, 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 potential risk. You can ignore this, just click on OK. So this has come in. So let's go and look at the data. This is it here. I'll select it. But now we get an information. It says this table cannot be shown because it is not in import mode. Question: what is the difference between import mode and direct query? So now let me go back here to explain. Whenever you're connecting to a relational database, when you're connecting to a relational database, like your SQL Server, PostgreSQL, Oracle, they have this option, Snowflake, you will have an option to either import the data or do direct query. When you import the data, what you're telling Power BI is to go to the database, copy the data, and create a copy of it in itself. So it's more like you want Power BI to go to the database to copy the data, and when Power BI gets to its own storage, it should paste the data there. So the data is replicated physically. But when you do direct query, what you're telling Power BI is go to the database, do not copy the data, or just establish a connection. Create a link to the data that is on the database so that whenever you need anything from there, you are able to see it. You are able to retrieve the specific thing that you need, but you do not duplicate the data in your storage. So that's what direct query means. So direct query means you want to be able to query the database directly without having to duplicate the data. Import, you want to create a copy of the data in Power BI itself. When should you use what and when? Microsoft has a very long list, a very lengthy conversation on this on their documentation. But to wrap it up, a lot of the times people will go around the fact that it depends on the size of your data. You don't want your Power BI file to blow out. Imagine you want to connect to your data of 500 million rows or a billion rows. You don't want to create a copy of that in Power BI because that would just blow out the size. So what you essentially want to do is to try to create a link so that what you need at every point in time is what you'll be able to bring in. For security purposes too, because if you import the data sits on this file. If anyone gets hold of the file, they're able to see the data. But if the data is on direct query, yeah, they will be able to see the report, but they can see the underlying data. So those are some reasons around this. There are a couple more reasons, but again, what you need to bear in mind is when you do direct query, your report might be some microseconds slower. So because for everything that you do with the data that is coming from direct query, Power BI will have to send a request to the source to retrieve the data for that particular purpose. So that is on SQL Server. And what we have done on SQL Server is similar to what you will experience if your organization uses Postgres or they use MySQL or they use Snowflake or BigQuery, whatever relational database or data warehouses that they use. This is pretty much similar. So today what we intended to cover is to give a foundation to Power BI, what Power BI is about. We talked about the installation of Power BI. We talked about the different Power BI products. We talked about the building blocks of Power BI, and we have looked at some places where you can bring in data from. These places that you can bring in data from, they are what you use to connect to them that you're selecting here. Everything you see here, these are called data connectors. And remember the definition of Power BI. Power BI is a collection of apps, softwares, services, and connectors. So the connectors bit of the Power BI definition, part of it, they are the things that you see here. These are data connectors. I think this will be a good place to stop for today. If you have questions, we can take maybe one or two before we call it a wrap. And we'll meet again next month, God willing, to continue on this, where we'll be looking at, in case your data is messy, your data is dirty, how do you begin to approach it to clean the mess from the data before you now start to use the data? Thank you. Over to you, Messi.
All right, everyone. It's been an insightful session, and I hope we've all taken one or two lessons. If you've known how to use Power BI before, this is a refresher course. And if you're just starting out, I'm sure the way it's being broken down, it's quite simple enough. So if you have questions, Mr. Musin will take them now. Is there anything that you need clarification on? So we can quickly take that and then end the class. So the floor is open if there is anything you would want Mr. Musin to attend to. Waiting for your questions. We have about a minute to wrap up the class.
Okay, I'm not sure we have questions for today. If people have
All
after
right.
now, maybe they can ask on the group. So Mercy, so we can close now.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you on the last Saturday in March. Kindly mark your calendar and do have a wonderful evening. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.